The alarm clock screamed at 4:30 a.m., just like it had every morning for the past 3 years. Maya rolled over and hit the snooze button with more force than necessary. Her tiny apartment was freezing cold because she couldn't afford to keep the heat on all night. The winter wind rattled her old windows, reminding her that December was here again with all its expensive challenges. She sat up slowly, feeling the weight of exhaustion in her bones. At 28, she already felt decades older. Her body ached from standing on her feet for 14 hours straight, 6 days a week, but there was no time to feel sorry for herself. In 30 minutes, she needed to be at Miller's diner for the breakfast rush. Maya stumbled to her small bathroom and looked at herself in the cracked mirror. Dark circles under her eyes told the story of someone who hadn't had a proper night's sleep in years. Her long black hair was tied back in the same ponytail she wore every day. Simple, practical, and fast. She splashed cold water on her face and brushed her teeth quickly. Her uniform hung on the back of the bathroom door. The same blue dress, with white trim that she had worn for 3 years as a waitress. It was clean but showed signs of wear. Small stains that wouldn't come out no matter how hard she scrubbed. A small tear near the pocket that she had sewn up herself. She couldn't afford a new uniform, and her boss at the diner didn't seem to care as long as she showed up on time. The kitchen was even smaller than the bathroom. Maya opened her refrigerator and stared at the nearly empty shelves. A half-empty carton of milk, some leftover bread, and a few apples that were starting to go soft. She grabbed an apple and took a bite. This would be breakfast. She had learned to stretch every dollar, and buying lunch was a luxury she couldn't afford when she brought her own food to work. She pulled on her winter coat, a thick blue jacket that had seen better days. The zipper stuck sometimes, and there was a small hole in the left sleeve, but it was warm. Her grandmother had given it to her 5 years ago, and it was one of her most treasured possessions. Not because it was expensive, but because it reminded her of the woman who had always believed in her dreams. Maya locked her apartment door and walked down 3 flights of stairs. The building was old, and the elevator had been broken for 6 months. Her landlord kept promising to fix it, but promises didn't help when you were carrying groceries or coming home exhausted from work. She had gotten used to the stairs, just like she had gotten used to a lot of things that weren't perfect in her life. The street was already busy, even though the sun hadn't come up yet. Maya walked quickly, her breath forming small clouds in the cold morning air. She passed other early workers heading to their jobs. A man delivering newspapers, a woman opening her flower shop, teenagers getting ready for school. Everyone in this neighborhood worked hard just to get by. Miller's diner sat on the corner of 5th and Main Street. It wasn't fancy, but it was clean and the food was good. Maya had worked there since she was 25, when she had to quit college to take care of her family. The owner, Mr. Miller, was a kind man in his 60s who treated his employees fairly. He couldn't pay much, but he was understanding when Maya needed time off for family emergencies. She pushed through the front door and heard the familiar bell ring above her head. The smell of coffee and bacon filled the air. The morning prep cook, Luis, waved at her from behind the counter. He had been working there for 10 years and had become like an uncle to Maya. He always made sure she got a free cup of coffee and sometimes slipped her extra food to take home. Maya tied her apron around her waist and checked the schedule. She was working the morning shift until 2 in the afternoon. Then she had 3 hours to get home, change clothes, and get to her second job cleaning offices downtown. It was the same schedule she had followed for 3 years, and she knew it by heart. The breakfast rush started early. By 6 o'clock, the diner was full of construction workers, office employees, and students grabbing coffee before their day began. Maya moved between tables with practiced efficiency. She knew most of the regular customers by name and remembered how they liked their coffee. Mrs. Peterson always ordered scrambled eggs with wheat toast. Tom the mechanic wanted his coffee black with extra sugar. These small connections with people were often the brightest part of her day. During her lunch break, Maya sat in the back room and called her mother. Her mom had been sick for 2 years with diabetes and high blood pressure. The medical bills were crushing, even with insurance. Maya sent most of her paycheck home every month to help with the costs. Her younger brother, Danny, was in his 2nd year of college, studying engineering. Maya was proud of him, but his tuition was another financial burden that kept her awake at night. "How are you feeling today, Mom?" Maya asked, trying to keep her voice cheerful. "Better today, sweetheart. Don't worry about me. How are you doing? Are you eating enough?" Maya smiled at her mother's constant concern. Even while dealing with her own health problems, her mom always worried about Maya first. "I'm fine, Mom. Luis makes sure I eat plenty here at work." They talked for 10 minutes before Maya had to get back to work. She didn't tell her mother about the letter she had received yesterday from the electric company, another late notice. She would figure it out somehow. She always did. The afternoon flew by in a blur of orders, coffee refills, and cleaning tables. Maya's feet hurt in her old work shoes, but she kept smiling at customers. Good tips meant the difference between paying bills on time or having to choose which ones to pay late. She had learned that a genuine smile and friendly conversation often resulted in an extra $1 or $2 in tips. At 2 o'clock, Maya hung up her apron and counted her tips for the day. $38. Not bad for a Tuesday, but not great either. She would need every penny for her family's expenses and her own survival. She said goodbye to Luis and Mr. Miller, then headed out into the cold afternoon air. The bus ride across town to her cleaning job took 45 minutes. Maya used this time to rest her feet and sometimes catch a quick nap if the bus wasn't too crowded. She worked for a company that cleaned office buildings at night. The pay was slightly better than the diner, but the work was harder. Vacuuming, mopping, emptying trash cans, and cleaning bathrooms in a 20-story office building was exhausting work. Maya had never imagined this would be her life when she was 18 and starting college with dreams of becoming a teacher. She had wanted to work with children, maybe teach elementary school or help kids who were struggling in school. But life had other plans. When her father died suddenly from a heart attack, everything changed. The medical bills from his final weeks in the hospital, combined with her mother's ongoing health problems, meant someone had to work full-time to support the family. Danny had begged her to let him quit school and get a job, but Maya refused. One of them needed to finish college and build a better life. She had made the sacrifice willingly, but some nights she wondered what her life might have been like if things had been different. As the bus approached downtown, Maya could see the tall office building where she would spend the next 6 hours cleaning. The sun was setting, and the lights in the office windows were starting to come on. Soon the building would be empty except for the cleaning crew. Maya gathered her things and prepared for another long night of work, knowing that tomorrow she would start the whole routine over again. The December wind cut through the streets like a knife. Maya pulled her jacket tighter as she walked out of the office building at midnight. Her cleaning shift had been particularly tough tonight. 3 floors of conference rooms had been left, messy after a big company party, and she had spent an extra hour scrubbing sticky spills and picking up decorations. Her hands were raw from the cleaning chemicals, and her back ached from bending over to pick up countless pieces of confetti. But she had finished everything on her list, and her supervisor had even thanked her for staying late. Sometimes the small recognition made the hard work feel worth it. Maya walked slowly toward the bus station 6 blocks away. The streets were mostly empty at this hour, except for a few late-night workers heading home and the occasional taxi driving by. The streetlights created small pools of yellow light in the darkness, and her footsteps echoed off the empty sidewalks. She was thinking about tomorrow's schedule when she saw him. An elderly man sat hunched over on a bench at the bus stop, shivering violently in the freezing cold. Even from a distance, Maya could see that something was wrong. The man was wearing what looked like an expensive suit but no coat or jacket. His thin dress shirt offered no protection against the bitter winter night. Maya's first instinct was to keep walking. It was late, she was tired, and she had learned to be careful in the city at night. But as she got closer, she could see the man more clearly. His silver hair was messy, and his hands were shaking uncontrollably. His lips looked blue in the streetlight, and he was rocking back and forth, trying to warm himself. She stopped walking and watched him for a moment. The man looked to be in his 70s, maybe older. He kept checking his watch and looking down the empty street as if waiting for something that wasn't coming. Maya noticed there was no bus schedule posted at this stop, which was strange. Against her better judgment, Maya approached the bench. "Excuse me, sir. Are you okay?" The man looked up with startled eyes. Up close, Maya could see that he was in worse shape than she had thought. His face was pale and he was shivering so hard he could barely speak. I missed the last bus, he managed to say through chattering teeth. My car broke down and I don't have any money for a taxi. Maya felt her heart sink. She looked at this stranger and saw someone's grandfather, cold and helpless on a winter night. How long have you been sitting here? About 3 hours, the man replied, his voice weak. I thought another bus would come, but he gestured helplessly at the empty street. 3 hours. Maya couldn't imagine sitting outside in this weather for 3 hours. The temperature had to be below freezing and the wind made it feel even colder. She looked at the man's thin clothing and realized he must be close to hypothermia. Without thinking about it, Maya began taking off her jacket, the blue coat that her grandmother had given her, the one that kept her warm during her long walks to work, the one that was one of her few valuable possessions. What are you doing? The man asked, confused. You need this more than I do, Maya said simply, wrapping the jacket around his shoulders. The coat was big on her small frame, so it fit him reasonably well. She could immediately see some relief in his face as the warmth began to help. Oh no, I can't take your coat, the man protested, trying to give it back. He'll freeze. Maya stepped back so he couldn't return the jacket. I'm younger and stronger than you. I'll be fine for a few blocks. Besides, there's a coffee shop down the street that stays open all night. Let's get you something hot to drink. The man stared at her in amazement. You don't even know me. Why would you help a stranger? Maya smiled, even though she was already starting to feel the cold without her jacket. My grandmother always told me that we're all connected. Today you need help, tomorrow it might be me. That's just how the world should work. She helped the elderly man stand up from the bench. His legs were unsteady, and Maya had to support his arm as they walked slowly toward the coffee shop. She could feel him leaning on her for balance, and she realized just how weak the cold had made him. The coffee shop was a small 24-hour place that served mostly night shift workers and insomniacs. Maya had been there a few times after particularly late cleaning shifts. The owner, a middle-aged woman named Rosa, recognized Maya as they walked in. Maya, honey, what are you doing out so late? And who's your friend? This gentleman got stranded without a coat, Maya explained, helping the man to a table near the heater. Could we get 2 large coffees and maybe some soup if you have it? Rosa looked at the elderly man with concern. Oh my goodness, you look frozen solid. Let me get you some hot soup right away. We have chicken noodle tonight. Maya sat across from the man and really looked at him for the first time. Despite his current condition, she could tell that his clothes were expensive. His watch looked like it cost more than she made in several months. His shoes were leather and well made. This wasn't a homeless person, but someone who had found himself in an unfortunate situation. I'm Maya, she said, extending her hand. William, the man replied, shaking her hand with fingers that were finally starting to warm up. William Hartwell, I can't begin to thank you for what you've done. Rosa brought over 2 steaming bowls of soup and large cups of coffee. The smell of the hot food filled the air, and Maya realized she was hungrier than she had thought. She had eaten only a small sandwich during her break at work, and that was 8 hours ago. Maya reached into her purse and pulled out the tip money she had earned at the diner that morning, $38 that she had planned to use for groceries and her electric bill. She handed the money to Rosa without hesitation. William watched this transaction with growing amazement. Please let me pay for this. I feel terrible that you're spending your money on a stranger. Don't worry about it, Maya said, stirring her soup. Sometimes we all need a little help. As they ate, William told Maya what had happened to him. His car had broken down in an unfamiliar part of the city after a business meeting. His cell phone had died, and while he was walking to find help, 2 young men had robbed him, taking his wallet, his expensive overcoat, and even his credit cards. He had been trying to find a police station when he got lost and ended up at the bus stop. I've lived in this city for 40 years, William said, shaking his head, but I've never been in this neighborhood before. I had no idea where I was or how to get home. Maya listened to his story with sympathy. She couldn't imagine being lost and helpless in her own city. Don't the buses run all night on this route? That's what I thought, William replied. But a police officer told me later that the last bus stop's running at 11 on weekdays. I had just missed it when I got to the stop. They sat in the warm coffee shop for over an hour, talking and drinking coffee. William asked Maya about her life, and she found herself telling him about her jobs, her mother's illness, and her brother's education. She didn't usually share personal details with strangers, but something about William made her feel comfortable. William listened intently to every word. Maya noticed that his eyes grew sad when she talked about giving up college to support her family. When she mentioned working 2 jobs, he asked detailed questions about her schedule and her goals. "You gave up your education to help your family?" William asked. "That must have been a difficult decision," Maya nodded. "Sometimes we have to make sacrifices for the people we love. My brother is going to be an engineer someday. That's worth more than my own dreams." As the night wore on, Maya realized she needed to get home. She had to be back at the diner in 4 hours for another shift. William looked much better now, with color back in his cheeks and steady hands. "I should call you a taxi," Maya said, looking at the clock on the wall. "No, please keep your money," William insisted. "I'll call someone to come get me. You've done more than enough already." Maya stood up and realized that William was still wearing her jacket. "You should keep that coat," she said. "It's still cold outside." "I can't take your jacket," William protested. "This must be important to you." Maya smiled. "It's just a coat. You need it more than I do right now." As they prepared to leave, William took Maya's hand. "I will never forget what you did for me tonight. Never. Most people walked right past me like I was invisible. But you stopped. You helped. You gave me your coat and bought me food with money you probably needed for yourself." "Anyone would have done the same thing," Maya said. William shook his head slowly. "No, Maya. Not everyone would have done what you did. You're a special person, and I hope someday I can repay your kindness." Maya walked out into the cold night air, now wearing only her work shirt and thin sweater. The wind immediately cut through her clothes, but she felt warm inside, knowing she had helped someone who really needed it. She hurried toward the bus stop, already planning how she would explain to her mother why she needed to borrow money for a new winter coat. She had no idea that her simple act of kindness would soon change her life forever. William sat in the coffee shop for another hour after Maya left, still wearing her jacket and thinking about what had just happened. The warmth was returning to his body, but his mind was spinning with thoughts about the remarkable young woman who had just saved his life. In 43 years of business, William Hartwell had built one of the most successful real estate companies in the state. He owned shopping centers, office buildings, and luxury apartment complexes across 3 cities. His net worth was something most people could barely imagine. He had been featured on magazine covers and had dinner with governors and senators. People knew his name and respected his success, but tonight, none of that had mattered. When his Mercedes broke down on the way back from a late board meeting, William had thought it would be a minor inconvenience. He had called his driver, but the man was off duty and lived an hour away. His assistant had already gone home for the evening. His phone battery died while he was trying to call a taxi company. Then the robbery happened. 2 teenagers had approached him while he was walking down an unfamiliar street, looking for help. They seemed friendly at first, asking if he needed directions. But when they saw his expensive watch and overcoat, everything changed. One of them pushed him against a wall while the other went through his pockets, taking his wallet, credit cards, and cell phone. They even took his cashmere overcoat, leaving him shivering in just his business suit. "Thanks for the donation, old man." One of them had laughed as they ran away with his belongings. William had been robbed before, but never like this. Usually, robbery meant someone taking money from his business or trying to cheat him in a deal. This was different. This was personal and frightening. He had felt helpless and vulnerable in a way he hadn't experienced since childhood. He had wandered the streets for hours, trying to find a police station or someone who could help him. But this wasn't the part of the city where he lived and worked. This was a neighborhood of small shops, old apartment buildings, and working-class families. The streets weren't filled with the kind of people who would recognize his name or status, and that was when something truly shocking happened. Person after person walked past him as he sat shivering on that bus bench. A well-dressed couple crossed to the other side of the street when they saw him. A group of young people laughed and made jokes about the crazy old man talking to himself. A security guard from a nearby building told him to move along because he was making the area look bad. For 3 hours, William experienced what it was like to be invisible. What it was like to need help and have everyone ignore you. What it was like to be judged by your appearance instead of your character or your bank account. Then Maya appeared. William had built his fortune by being able to read people quickly. In business, you had to know who to trust and who was trying to take advantage of you. But Maya was different from anyone he had ever met. She didn't look at his expensive suit or wonder what he could do for her. She simply saw another human being who needed help. When she took off her jacket and wrapped it around his shoulders, William had been stunned. The jacket was clearly old and worn, but it was clean and well cared for. He could tell it was one of her few valuable possessions. Yet she gave it to him without hesitation. Then she had taken him to the coffee shop and spent her tip money buying him food. $38 that she probably needed for her own expenses. Money that she had earned by working hard and serving customers all day. She had given it away to help a stranger. As William listened to Maya's story over soup and coffee, he began to understand the kind of person she was. She worked 2 jobs to support her sick mother and pay for her brother's college education. She had given up her own dreams of becoming a teacher to take care of her family. She lived in a tiny apartment and counted every dollar. Yet she had just spent money she couldn't afford to help someone she had never met. William had met thousands of people in his business career. Politicians who smiled and shook hands while planning to stab you in the back. Business partners who talked about friendship while looking for ways to cheat you. Employees who pretended to care about the company while stealing supplies and cutting corners. But Maya was genuine. Everything about her was real and honest. She helped him because it was the right thing to do, not because she expected anything in return. She didn't even know his last name, let alone his financial status. After Maya left for the night, William called his personal assistant using the coffee shop's phone. 20 minutes later, a black car arrived to take him home to his mansion in the hills overlooking the city. As he rode through the empty streets, still wearing Maya's jacket, William couldn't stop thinking about the contrast between his world and hers. His house had 12 rooms, including a library, a home theater, and a wine cellar worth more than most people made in a year. Maya lived in a tiny apartment where she couldn't afford to keep the heat on all night. He owned vacation homes in 3 different states. She worked cleaning offices until midnight just to pay her bills. Yet Maya was happier and more at peace than he had been in years. William had been married once, but his wife had left him 15 years ago, saying he cared more about making money than building a relationship. He had no children, few real friends, and spent most of his time alone in his big house or working late at the office. Success had brought him wealth and respect, but it hadn't brought him happiness or genuine human connection. The next morning, William couldn't concentrate on work. He kept thinking about Maya and wondering how her day was going. Was she cold without her jacket? Had she been able to pay her electric bill without the tip money she had spent on him? How was her mother feeling? Was her brother doing well in college? William had never been the kind of person who worried about other people's problems. He donated money to charity for tax reasons, but he didn't get personally involved in helping individuals. He believed that people should solve their own problems and work hard to improve their situations. But Maya had changed something in him. Her kindness had touched a part of his heart that he thought had died years ago. He realized that in all his years of success, no one had ever treated him with the pure, unselfish kindness that Maya had shown him in the coffee shop. He started making phone calls. Within 2 days, William had hired a private investigator to learn more about Maya's situation. Not because he wanted to spy on her, but because he wanted to understand how he could help. The investigator's report painted a picture of a young woman who was working herself to exhaustion to support her family. Maya's mother, Elena, had diabetes and high blood pressure. The medical bills were crushing the family financially, even with insurance. Maya sent most of her paycheck home every month, keeping only enough to pay for her tiny apartment and basic food. Her brother Danny was a good student, but the family was struggling to pay his college tuition. The investigator also found out that Maya had been an excellent student herself. She had been accepted to the state university with a partial scholarship to study elementary education. Her professors remembered her as bright, dedicated, and passionate about working with children. She had given up everything to take care of her family when her father died. William sat in his office reading the report and feeling a mixture of admiration and sadness. Maya had sacrificed her own future to help the people she loved. She had the kind of character and integrity that he had rarely encountered in his business world. He also felt ashamed. While Maya was working 2 jobs and giving up her dreams, he was sitting in his mansion, complaining about being lonely and bored with his success. He had more money than he could spend in several lifetimes, yet he had never used it to make a real difference in anyone's life. Maya had shown him what true generosity looked like. She had given him her jacket, her money, and her time without expecting anything in return. Now it was his turn to show her the same kind of kindness. But William knew he had to be careful. Maya was proud and independent. She wouldn't accept charity or handouts from a wealthy stranger. He would have to find a way to help her that honored her dignity and her strength. William smiled as he began to make plans. For the first time in years, he felt excited about something other than closing a business deal. He was going to change Maya's life the same way she had changed his. The question was how to do it without making her feel like she was receiving charity. Maya deserved help, but she also deserved respect. William was determined to find a way to give her both. 3 weeks had passed since that cold December night, and Maya was struggling more than ever. Without her winter jacket, she had caught a terrible cold that kept her home from work for 2 days. Those missed shifts meant less money for her family's bills, and the stress was wearing her down. She had bought a thin replacement coat from a thrift store, but it didn't keep her nearly as warm as her grandmother's jacket. Every morning, when she walked to work in the freezing cold, she thought about the elderly man she had helped. She wondered if he was staying warm, and if someone had been able to help him get home safely that night. Maya was refilling coffee cups during the lunch rush at Miller's Diner when something unusual happened. A well-dressed woman in an expensive business suit walked through the front door and looked around the restaurant carefully. She was clearly not a typical customer for this neighborhood diner. The woman approached Maya's section and sat down at a corner table. She was probably in her 50s, with perfectly styled gray hair and the kind of confidence that came from years of success in business. Maya walked over with a menu and her usual friendly smile. "Good afternoon. Can I start you with some coffee?" "Actually," the woman said, "I'm looking for someone specific. Are you Maya Rodriguez?" Maya felt a chill of fear run down her spine. People didn't usually come looking for her by name unless something was wrong. "Yes, that's me. Is everything okay? Is it about my family?" The woman smiled warmly. "Oh no, nothing like that. My name is Catherine Mills, and I work for someone who has been trying to find you for weeks. He asked me to give you this." Catherine reached into her briefcase and pulled out Maya's blue winter jacket. The coat looked exactly the same as when Maya had given it away, except it had been professionally cleaned, and the small hole in the sleeve had been carefully repaired. Maya stared at the jacket in shock. Where did you get this?" "My employer wanted to return it to you personally," Catherine explained. "He also wanted to invite you to meet with him this afternoon if you're available. He has something important to discuss with you." Maya looked around the busy diner. Mr. Miller was watching the conversation with curiosity, and her regular customers were waiting for their coffee refills. "I'm working right now. I can't just leave," Catherine nodded understandingly. "I spoke with Mr. Miller before you arrived today. He's agreed to let you take the afternoon off. He said you've been working here for 3 years without taking a single personal day, so you deserve some time for yourself." Maya was confused and a little scared. "I don't understand. Who is your employer? What does he want with me?" "His name is William Hartwell," Catherine said gently, "and I think you'll want to hear what he has to say." The name didn't mean anything to Maya, but something about Catherine's tone made her curious. Against her better judgment, she agreed to go. Mr. Miller assured her that Luis could cover her tables for the rest of the day, and that she wouldn't lose any pay for leaving early. Catherine drove Maya downtown in a sleek black car to the tallest office building in the city. Maya had cleaned faces before, but never in a building this impressive. The lobby had marble floors, crystal chandeliers, and security guards in expensive uniforms. Catherine led her to a private elevator that went straight to the top floor. The elevator opened into a reception area that looked like something from a magazine. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered an amazing view of the entire city. Maya could see the diner where she worked, the office building where she cleaned at night, and even the neighborhood where she lived, all spread out below like a map. "Mr. Hartwell is waiting for you in his office," Catherine said, leading Maya down a hallway lined with expensive artwork. They stopped at a set of double doors made of dark wood. Catherine knocked once and then opened the doors to reveal the largest office Maya had ever seen. The room was bigger than her entire apartment, with a conference table, multiple seating areas, and walls lined with awards and photographs. Behind a massive desk sat a man Maya recognized immediately, even though he looked completely different from when she had last seen him. Instead of shivering in the cold wearing a thin business suit, William Hartwell was impeccably dressed in an expensive gray suit with a silk tie. His silver hair was perfectly styled, and he radiated the kind of confidence that came with power and wealth. But his eyes were the same kind eyes that had looked at her with such gratitude in the coffee shop 3 weeks ago. "Maya," William said, standing up and walking around his desk with a warm smile. "Thank you so much for coming. Please sit down." Maya remained standing, still holding her returned jacket and trying to process what was happening. "You're William from the coffee shop. But this is your office?" "Yes, it is," William said gently. "I own this building, actually, along with about 50 others around the state." Maya felt dizzy. She sat down heavily in one of the leather chairs facing William's desk. "You're rich. Really rich?" "I am," William admitted. "And that night when you found me, I had just been robbed. They took my wallet, my phone, and my coat. I was stranded and cold, and dozens of people walked past me without stopping to help. Except for you." Maya stared at him, trying to understand. "But why didn't you tell me? Why did you let me buy you food when you could have afforded to buy the whole restaurant?" William's expression grew serious. "Because I wanted to see who you really were. And what I discovered was the most genuinely kind person I've ever met. You helped me not because of who I was or what I could do for you, but simply because it was the right thing to do." "I still don't understand why you wanted to find me," Maya said quietly. William walked over to the window and looked out at the city below. "Maya, I've been successful in business for over 40 years. I've made more money than I could spend in several lifetimes. But I've never been truly happy. I've been lonely and disconnected from real human kindness for so long that I had forgotten what it felt like." He turned back to face her. "That night in the coffee shop, you reminded me what it means to be genuinely generous. You gave me your jacket, spent your tip money on my food, and treated me with more respect and kindness than I've received from people who have known me for years." Maya felt tears starting to form in her eyes. "But I didn't do anything special. Anyone would have helped." "No, Maya, that's where you're wrong." William's voice was firm but gentle. "I sat on that bench for 3 hours and dozens of people walked past me. Some crossed the street to avoid me. Others pretended they didn't see me. You were the only person who stopped to help." William returned to his desk and pulled out a thick folder. "After that night, I had someone research your situation. I hope you don't mind, but I wanted to understand your life better." Maya felt a flash of anger. "You investigated me?" "I wanted to help you," William said quickly. "But I also wanted to make sure I understood your situation completely. Maya, I know about your mother's medical bills. I know about your brother's college tuition. I know that you gave up your own education to support your family when your father died." Maya stood up, feeling overwhelmed and embarrassed. "You had no right to dig into my personal life." "You're absolutely right," William said. "I apologize for that. But what I learned made me respect you even more. You've sacrificed everything for the people you love. You work 2 jobs, send most of your money home, and live in a tiny apartment where you can't even afford to keep the heat on all night. What does any of this have to do with you?" Maya asked, her voice shaking. William opened the folder and pulled out several documents. "I want to offer you something, Maya. Not charity, but an opportunity. I want to offer you a full scholarship to finish your education degree at the state university." Maya's legs felt weak. She sat back down, staring at William in disbelief. "I also want to offer you a part-time job working for my company," William continued. "You would be a community outreach coordinator, helping to develop programs that support working families in the city. The job pays more than both of your current jobs combined, and the schedule would allow you to attend classes." Maya couldn't speak. She looked at the documents William was showing her, but the words seemed to blur together. "There's more," William said softly. "I want to establish a fund to cover your mother's medical expenses and ensure she gets the best possible care. I also want to set up an account to cover your brother's remaining college tuition." "Why?" Maya whispered. "Why would you do this?" William sat down in the chair next to hers. "Because 3 weeks ago you changed my life. You showed me what real kindness looks like. You reminded me that success means nothing if you're not using it to help other people." Maya started crying, overwhelmed by the magnitude of what William was offering. "I can't accept this. It's too much." "Maya," William said gently, "you gave me your jacket when I was freezing. You spent your tip money to buy me food when you probably needed it for your own bills. You sat with me and treated me like a friend when I was lost and scared. All I'm doing is returning the favor." Maya looked up at him through her tears. "But what if I fail? What if I can't handle school and work at the same time?" William smiled. "Then we'll figure it out together. Maya, you have the strongest character of anyone I've ever met. You've already proven that you can handle anything life throws at you. Now it's time to let someone help you achieve your dreams." Maya held her grandmother's jacket against her chest and felt the weight of 3 years of struggle and sacrifice lifting from her shoulders. For the first time since her father died, she allowed herself to believe that her life could be different. "Okay," she whispered. "Yes, I accept your offer." William's face lit up with joy. "Wonderful. We'll start with the paperwork tomorrow. But Maya, I want you to know something. This isn't charity. You've earned this opportunity through your kindness, your work ethic, and your character. I'm not giving you anything you don't deserve." As Maya sat in that beautiful office, looking out at the city where she had struggled for so long, she realized that sometimes the smallest acts of kindness could lead to the most incredible changes. She had given her jacket to a stranger on a cold night, and now her entire future had been transformed. But more than that, she had gained something she didn't even know she was missing. She had found someone who believed in her and wanted to help her succeed. For the first time in years, Maya felt hopeful about what tomorrow might bring. 6 months later, Maya stood in front of her new classroom at Roosevelt Elementary School, watching 25 third graders settle into their seats for the first day of school. She wore a professional dress that she had bought with her first paycheck from William's company, and her grandmother's blue jacket hung in the closet at home, carefully preserved as a reminder of the night that changed everything. The transformation in Maya's life had been remarkable, but it hadn't happened overnight. The first few weeks after meeting William had been overwhelming. Suddenly, Maya had to juggle university classes, her new job as community outreach coordinator, and the emotional adjustment of no longer living paycheck to paycheck. The hardest part had been calling her mother to explain what had happened. Elena had cried for 20 minutes straight when Maya told her about William's offer to cover her medical expenses. For the first time in 3 years, Maya's mother could focus on getting better instead of worrying about how to pay for her medications. Danny had been equally shocked when Maya called to tell him his tuition was taken care of. Her little brother, who was now in his 3rd year studying engineering, had offered to drop out of school so Maya could pursue her own education. But Maya had insisted he continue with his studies. "This is big enough for both of us," she had told him. Maya's new job had been challenging at first. As community outreach coordinator for Hartwell Development Company, her responsibility was to identify families and individuals in the community who needed help, then connect them with resources and opportunities. It was rewarding work, but it required skills Maya had never developed in her years as a waitress and cleaning woman. William had been patient and supportive, providing Maya with training and mentorship as she learned her new role. He had also insisted that she call him William, not Mr. Hartwell, despite the fact that he was now technically her boss. "We're partners in this," he had told her during one of their weekly meetings. "You understand the needs of working families in this city better than anyone in my company. I need your insight to make sure we're helping people in ways that really matter." The university had been another adjustment. Maya was older than most of her classmates, and she had been out of school for several years. The first few weeks had been difficult as she struggled to keep up with reading assignments and research papers. But her professors quickly recognized her dedication and life experience as strengths that enhanced her education. One of her favorite classes was child development, taught by Dr. Patricia Wong, a woman in her 60s who had been teaching for 30 years. Dr. Wong had taken a special interest in Maya's story and often used her experiences to illustrate important concepts about resilience and family dynamics. Maya brings a perspective to our discussions that enriches everyone's understanding, Dr. Wong had told the class one day. She's lived the challenges that many of the families we'll work with face every day. But the most meaningful part of Maya's transformation was the work she was doing through William's company. Together, they had developed a program called Community Bridges that connected struggling families with education, job training, and financial assistance. The program was designed to help people build long-term stability rather than just providing temporary relief. Maya's first major success had been helping a single mother named Rosa, who was working 3 part-time jobs to support her 2 children. Rosa reminded Maya of herself, exhausted, dedicated, and determined to give her kids a better life despite overwhelming obstacles. Through community bridges, Maya had helped Rosa enroll in a nursing program at the local community college. The program covered Rosa's tuition and provided childcare during her classes. Within 8 months, Rosa had completed her certification and found a full-time job at the city hospital, with good benefits and room for advancement. "You changed my life," Rosa had told Maya at her graduation ceremony. "Before this program, I felt trapped. Now I have hope for my family's future." Stories like Rosa's were becoming common as community bridges expanded. Maya and William had helped a retired mechanic start a small business fixing cars in his neighborhood. They had provided scholarships for teenagers whose families couldn't afford college. They had even helped elderly residents with home repairs and medical expenses. But William's transformation had been just as remarkable as Maya's. The lonely, isolated businessman who had been robbed that December night was now actively involved in his community in ways he had never imagined. He regularly visited the families that community bridges helped, and he had started attending community meetings to better understand local needs. Maya opened my eyes to what was happening in my own city. William told a reporter who was writing a story about community bridges. "I had been so focused on building wealth that I had forgotten the purpose of success is to help other people." William had also made changes in his personal life. He had begun dating Catherine Mills, his assistant who had helped locate Maya months earlier. Catherine had been working for William for 8 years, and their professional relationship had slowly grown into something deeper after Maya's influence had helped William become more open to genuine human connections. The ripple effects of that December night continued to spread in unexpected ways. Mr. Miller, the owner of the diner where Maya used to work, had been so inspired by her story that he started a program to help his employees pursue education while continuing to work. Luis, the cook who had always been kind to Maya, was now taking business classes with the goal of opening his own restaurant. Even Rosa, the owner of the all-night coffee shop where Maya had taken William, had been affected. After learning about community bridges, Rosa had started offering free meals to anyone who couldn't afford to pay, trusting that kindness would come back to her in other ways. Maya's success at Roosevelt Elementary had exceeded everyone's expectations. Her life experiences had given her a unique ability to connect with children from difficult backgrounds. She understood what it felt like to worry about money, to have family responsibilities that seemed overwhelming, and to feel like your dreams were impossible to achieve. One of her students, an 8-year-old boy named Carlos, reminded Maya of her brother Danny at that age. Carlos was brilliant but often hungry and tired because his family was struggling financially. Maya had quietly connected Carlos's family with community bridges, ensuring that the boy had proper nutrition and a stable home environment so he could focus on learning. "Mrs. Rodriguez believes in us," Carlos had told his mother. "She says we can do anything if we work hard and help each other." Maya's classroom had become known throughout the school as a place where struggling students thrived. Her bulletin boards were covered with pictures of former students who had graduated and gone on to succeed in middle school and high school. Parents requested Maya specifically because they knew she would see potential in their children that others might miss. But perhaps the most meaningful moment had come during the school's spring celebration. Maya was talking with parents about their children's progress when she noticed an elderly man standing near the classroom door. It was William, holding a bouquet of flowers and smiling proudly. "I wanted to see the teacher everyone's talking about," he said when Maya approached him. "The whole community is buzzing about the amazing work you're doing with these kids." Maya hugged him, still amazed by how much both of their lives had changed. "None of this would have happened without that night in December." William shook his head. "Maya, you always had this gift for helping people. I just gave you the opportunity to use it in a bigger way. The kindness was always inside you." As the school year came to an end, Maya reflected on the journey that had brought her to this point. A simple act of compassion on a cold winter night had transformed not just her own life, but the lives of dozens of other people in her community. She thought about her grandmother's jacket, hanging safely in her closet at home. The coat that had started everything was now a symbol of how small acts of kindness could create waves of positive change that spread far beyond what anyone could imagine. "Maya, had learned that kindness was like throwing a stone into a calm lake. The initial splash might seem small, but the ripples continued spreading outward, touching shores you never knew existed. Her decision to help a shivering stranger had created ripples that were still expanding, bringing hope and opportunity to people she had never met. As she locked her classroom door for the summer, Maya smiled, knowing that somewhere in the city, another person was probably making a choice between walking past someone who needed help or stopping to offer kindness. She hoped they would choose kindness, because you never knew how far those ripples might travel or whose life they might change forever. The story that began with a jacket given to a stranger on a winter night had become a story about the power of human compassion to transform entire communities, and Maya knew it was just the beginning.